Okay, so we're gonna get started, so we have enough time for everything today. Again, this is the segment 3 review for your test on Monday. This is gonna be mostly, or all practice problems. We did a lot of concepts on Tuesday, so this is, as you guys said, you needed a lot of, practice problems, so hopefully this helps. These will, or most likely will, be seen on the test, so these are good to study with. You guys will be sent this after this session. Um, so let's get started. So the first question um, is a word problem. Again, like I'll give you guys 5 minutes for each question and then we'll go through it together. So the first question says a company issues a 20-year bond with the 6% company rate that pays semi-annually with a yield to maturity of 7.2%. It has a call premium of 3% and is callable in 7 years. Today you can buy it for 1,200. What is the yield to call? So again, take like 5 minutes and then we'll solve it together. Okay, so as soon as you guys are finishing up, put your answer in the chat so I can check if you are doing it right or you got the right answer. Okay, so that was 5 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and do the answer now just to make sure we get through all 6 problems. I want to make sure we have enough time today. So again, put your answers in the chat so I can just make sure you're kind of understanding it, or if you have a guess at the answer, you can put that in too. Um, so unlike the other sessions, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it so you guys can all see how to do it for the test. So basically for this one, how you're gonna start, how I always start is just by labeling all my variables that I will have. So I'll have our N, our coupon, our payment, our I, or that's your yield to maturity, our premium, future value, present value, and your rate. And then another thing that I do is just note, so we see that it's semi-annual. So I'm gonna make another column that just, so I remember it is semi-annual. So the first thing you do is just go through all your variables and try and label as much as you can. So we see that it's callable in 7 years, so our N is 7, because we wanna know the yield to call, not the yield to maturity. So our 7, but to adjust for semi-annual, you need to multiply that by 2. And then our coupon rate is 6%. And then again, you have to adjust that for being semi-annual. So you divide it by 2, change it to percentage. So let's see, you'll get 3%. Our payment, so we'll come back to that in a second. We'll go to future value real quick. So our future value, as well, originally it will be 1,000. So we'll start with 1,000 for now so we can finish the payment. So all the payment is taking your adjusted coupon rate and multiplying it by 1,000 to get $30. Our yield to maturity is 7.2%. It's not really relevant here, but it's still good to know in case you need to finish a problem with like what is the full, whatever it is. Then we see that our premium is 3%. And then we have to adjust our future value. So we'll add in another row. So this is our new future value. So it's going to be taking your 1,000, multiplying it by your premium, and adding back 1,000. So you get $1,030, and then we have a present value of negative 1,200. So now when you're finding your rate, I'm going to do in this column because you know it's going to be a semi-annual rate since we have it all adjusted. So when you type in rate, then it's going to be number of periods first, your payment, your present value, and your future value. So you should end up with a rate of 1.59%, and that is semi-annual. So again, to adjust for semi-annual, if you want to make it yearly, you're going to do this formula that we've used a bunch of times in class. It's a 1 plus your non-annual rate to the power of your period, so to the power of 2, and then subtract 1. So then if you make this a percentage, you should end up with 3.2% as your yearly rate. Again, if you guys have any questions, put it in the chat and I'll take a look at them. But hope this made sense to you guys. And again, this type of word problem is something you could see on the test. So we can move right into the second problem. So this second problem says you need to pay off a payment of 25,897 6 years from now. You have a bank account with 3.6% interest that compounds monthly. What do you need to deposit right now to have paid it off on the due date? So again, take like 4 or 5 minutes and then we'll do it together. And when you're done, just put your answer in the chat. So I'm seeing a few answers in the chat, and I just want to give you guys a hint before we go over it. So you're actually not solving for payment. You want to know, what do you need to deposit right now, today, at this moment, to have it paid off on the due date? On the due date. So that's going to end up being your present value. You want to know what to pay right now. So try resolving it, and we'll go over it in like a minute. Okay, so we're going to start going over it. I'm still seeing some confusion, so we'll go through it to clear it up. So let's read it part by part in the problem. So you need to pay off a payment of 25,897. So that's going to be your end term goal. You need to pay that full amount off. So that is your future value. So that's your overall goal, is to pay that off. So then your I, you have a 3.6% interest, but it says it compounds monthly. So again, you need a change for that. So you're going to divide it by 12. And then you have an N that says 6 years from now. Again, you have to change it to monthly. So you're going to multiply by 12. And then your payment is 0. No part of this problem says every month you're going to put in a certain amount or how much you need to pay every month. It's just your overall. So payment is actually 0. Now we're going to solve for a present value, which is the amount you're going to pay right now to have the full 25,000 payoff. So again, this is the simple problem. So your present value, oops, I'm going to change this to a percentage. So present value, your rate, your N, your payment, and your future value. So you should end up with negative 20,872 right now. Still seeing some confusion in the chat. Do you guys want to put where you include in the chat where you kind of went wrong on this, or? Okay, yeah. So it's negative because it's like a payment. You're gonna put in the money, so it's negative. Yeah. You forgot. Yeah, make sure you divide the rate by 12. That's really important. And multiply the N by 12. That's also very important. It's a big mistake on tests a lot of the time. It's just those little careless mistakes that sometimes can cause like the whole problem to go wrong. So that's why I lay it out like this, even on the test, to make sure there are no mistakes or anything. So again, present value cell. Yeah. So should look like that. I don't know if it's hard to tell what's what, but again, I will be sending these out after this session, so you guys can use this to study, definitely. But really, as you're reading through the problem, make sure you guys are taking it step by step and really thinking about it. So we can, so that's 0. We talked about it in another session. It's the end or beginning. It's like annuity due, or I forget the word of the other one. And so you'll always put a 0 there. You can put a 1, but in this class you won't need to. So if you don't put a 0, I don't know if it'll tell you error. No, it won't. Well, I just have a habit of putting a 0, but you don't need it. But if you are going to put it, just put a 0 for this class. Yeah, so you only use 1,000 for bond problems, but this isn't a bond problem. And yeah, you can write the 0.3% as it would be 0.003. So make sure you're changing the decimal correctly if you are going to write it as a decimal. But again, that's like another mistake. So if you're going to write it, I just suggest leaving it as a percentage. It just takes away the little mistakes. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, I think okay, so there's some questions that we've done in the past where in order to make payments, we start with negative amount is owed and future value at 0. What is the difference? So in this case, it's telling you that you have to pay off the 25,000. And so you just want to know how much you're going to pay right now. But in another case, like if you're saying it's going to be paid off full and you're given the future value or the present value, and you're looking for like how much you have to pay each month, then that's when your future value would be 0. No, it kind of relates to what I just said. So you have a future value and you want to know how much you're going to pay right now. If you're saying it's going to be paid off full and this is your present value, or if you have your payments and you're looking for something else, then it would be zero. Again, it kind of depends on the wording. Okay, so I want to move on to the next one. I just don't want to run out of time for you guys. So the next one is you invested 1 million in a franchise this year at an interest rate of 5%. What is the net present value with cash flows listed below? So you have your 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you want to find the net present value. So again, I'll give you guys a few minutes and then we'll solve it. When you have your answers, put them in the chat. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of answers in the chat, so I'm gonna guess you guys are finishing up or you're already done. So we can go through this one. I'm seeing a few different answers. Um, so this one should be pretty simple, again, as long as you set it up right. Um, you should be good with this one. So again, this is the way I set it up. So first, just label everything. So you're gonna have 4 years. Okay, so we start with this and I'll include the rate. So we have a rate of 5%. So we're just gonna label that. Your initial money that you put in was 1 million. And then you have your 4 years of cash flows. So label those. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do for this is find your net present value, but this is without the initial investment. So I always label it again, try and get rid of your little mistakes that may cause you to get the answer wrong. So I label it NPV without initial, just kind of tells me what step I'm on. So you just do equals NPV and it tells you discount first. So you click on your 5% and then you do all the cash flows without your initial investment. You press enter and you should get 1,484,000, so on, so on. And then the next thing I do is I bring down again my initial investment. So you can just click on this cell and it brings it down. And then I label that I need to find the NPV with the initial. So I just label it NPV. And all you're doing is taking your NPV without the initial and subtracting out your initial payment. So you should end up with 484,174.91 cents. So this is the way you would go about this problem. For the people that were getting the answer wrong, does it make sense? Are you still confused about a certain part or anything? Hopefully this helps. If you guys do have questions, put it in the chat and I'll take a look. But again, I can't really emphasize this enough. This segment and the next segment, please lay out everything in your Excel sheet and don't keep things like in your head, like assuming, because that's where all the mistakes happen. The initial investment isn't a negative number because you subtract it out here anyway. Right here, you subtract it, so you don't really have to make it a negative. So it doesn't really matter. Okay, if you got the answer a different way, well, I'm not sure how you did it, but if you get the same answer, I don't know how it would work on other problems, but that's up to you. From the formula from the lecture. Okay, I don't really know what formula. Move to 3.5%. What will happen to your bonds? So again, take a few seconds on this one, and then we will, oh wait. Actually, we're gonna skip this one for a second. I have to pull up it on my other screen. So let's go to number 5 and we'll come back to it. Okay, number 5, and I will look for the other one. You have 2 options to pay off a diamond necklace you just bought. Either pay it off at $92.18 a month for the year on a credit card with a 19% interest rate, or pay it off immediately for $1,000. What should you do? So work on this one, and then for like 5 minutes and put your answers in the chat. Okay, so I'm seeing a bunch of answers in the chat. So we'll go through it and then we'll talk about the answers and what you can do from what you're getting. So we're gonna start with $1,000 versus. Okay. So to start, we have a payment of -92.18 cents. And then your interest rate is 19%. And it's adjusted for monthly, so divided by 12. And then your N is a month on the year, so it's 12 months. You can leave it like that. Your future value is 0 because this is one that's going to be 0 because you want the full necklace paid off. And then to find the present value, you're going to take PV, you're going to take your rate, and then your periods, your payment amount, and your future value. So you should get $1,000.25. So just as you guys are saying, pay it off immediately, it doesn't really make a difference because clearly the only difference is 25 cents. So yeah, so the answer would be just like there's no difference. It's whatever you prefer. If you prefer to do a monthly plan, you can do that because you end up at the same amount of cash. If you want to pay it up front, you can also do that because again, you're going to end up at the same amount of cash. So if I was the jeweler or, if I was doing this payment plan, you could have created like a larger rate because then over time it would have added up to more money than just paying it up front because a lot of people may not like want to do the math while they're seeing it and they're like, oh, 92 a month for like a certain percent might be a lot better than just paying it up front. So you're solving for the present value rather than the future value because sorry, I was reading the chat because you're comparing it to what you would pay right now. So you have the $1,000 right now, or you can do this plan, but you're still going to look and compare it to the price of right now. The $1,000 isn't in the future because that might change for whatever reasons. You want to look and compare it to right now. So you're going to solve for present value, and your future value is going to be fully paid off by the end because you're going to pay for the full price of the necklace. The 19% interest rate is for the entire year. I thought it was monthly interest. Unless it says 19% interest per month or like monthly, assume that it says that it's yearly and you have to adjust for monthly. So it says $92.18 a month. And if it said with 19% interest per month, like that's where you would assume. But you have to assume that the 19% is still for the year. Yeah, so it's annual unless stated otherwise. Is this assuming you can get a 19% return on the money you don't spend if you go with the monthly plan? 19% return on the money you don't spend. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. But yeah. So anyway, this is how you solve this problem. Hopefully it's pretty easy. So I was having a glitch on 4. I had to redo it real quick, but we're gonna go back to number 4. It should be kind of simple. So number 4 is saying you have a callable bond that pays out $31.20 every 6 months, and the interest rates of the market just moved to 3.5%. What will happen to your bonds? So take a second, think about this, think about what it's asking, and put your answers in the chat if you have an idea. Okay, so I'm gonna start going over this to make sure we get in the last one and have a little bit of time at the end. So for this question, it's asking what will happen to your bonds compared to the market. So you have your market rate at 3.5%, and your bond that's supposed to say paid 102.34 for it. So again, take a few minutes and then put your answers in the chat as soon as you're done solving for it. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of answers in the chat, so I'm gonna guess you guys are close to finish. If not, you already finished. So we're gonna go through it. So again, yes, as every other problem, you're gonna start by labeling everything you have. So your overall goal is to get your coupon percentage. So in order to get a coupon, you have to solve for your payment. So we're first going to solve for a payment. So reading through the problem, we have a yield to maturity of 7.8%. Then we have a present value of negative 1,200 or 1,023.4. And then we have a future value of 1,000 because it is a bond. And we have a N of 15. Now there's nothing that has to be adjusted or anything. So we're just going to solve for a payment. So you're going to take your rate, your number of periods, your present value, and your future value. So you should be left with $80.70 for your payment. Now, as you know, to get a payment, you have to multiply your coupon by 1,000. So we're going to do opposite. So we're going to take our payment and divide it by 1,000. And you have to change it to a percentage. And oh wait, what happened? Oh, this is wrong. It has to be 1,000. Okay, so you should be left with 8.07%. So that's just kind of like a backwards. Instead of being given the coupon, you're solving for the coupon. So first you have to solve for the payment. Hopefully that made sense for the people that were getting different answers. Just by seeing it, it kind of like makes a little bit more sense. How did you get 1,023.4? Okay, so this is kind of what we talked about. Yeah, bond price. So what we talked about the last session, but also I mentioned it in class, at least for the 1030 class. So if you see like a bond problem, it's only in bonds, and it says you paid 102.34 and there is no dollar sign. That means you have to move the decimal over 1. Why they write it like that, I'm not sure, but they write bonds like that. And so if you don't see a dollar sign, then you have to move the decimal point over 1. It's different than basis points. This is like bond price, so like don't get them confused. So, okay, so I'm going to end the recording. So if you guys have any questions,